let's just get it out of the way. Censorship sucks. I am so against censorship, and the news with what the UK is doing, especially some news out of Australia with how they're banning certain games that people have bought with their own money, and the service that license these games to them, they just rip it from them, no refunds. Blows my mind from a consumer standpoint. Growing up, I would have never thought this stuff would be possible, but here we are. So let's talk about it. Hi, I'm Jeff. Nice to meet you. I hate censorship. I think censoring art, and I guess can get a little political. What are things that we can censor? What is freedom of speech? It's a tough one. Some things out there I may not like, but some people are going to have the right to talk about it or so forth. But what I'm talking about is things that used to be legal, or at least are legal and protected, are now having extra barriers to it and censorship. One thing I wanted to talk about, which I found quite interesting, is how the UK is using verification to use the internet and is going as far to having age verification to listening to music. That's crazy. I remember listening to different kinds of music in like my high school, college years, and like the 2010s, late 2020s. Didn't matter what kind of music it is. I mean, I was listening to some dark stuff when I was like a teenager at 12, like cussing, really dark themes, and it makes me sad to think that some kids out there that are like teenager years have to deal with this verification thing. I find that utterly ridiculous. Like, okay, Spotify, I gotta verify my age of I'm 18 or older to listen to Linkin Park when I was listening to them when I was 12. Like, okay, fuck out of here. If the U.S. ever does that, like, that sucks. that will be a very dark day, and I really hope we don't follow in UK steps regarding that. Even online content things, I'm not talking about very obscene things that are just like really wrong, grape, really violent videos, things like that. I don't think there should be mainstream platforms for that, but people are going to find a will or a way to find those, but as long as you're not like I think one of the worst things that is promoted now is gambling. Like that was a cool censorship where gambling wasn't online. Now it's everywhere. I read a statistic somewhere that like in 2019, I think it was for the US stats, online gambling was about 4 billion. You know what it is 6 years later? I'll give you a second to throw out a guess. 4 billion. How much has it gone up in about 5.5 to 6 years? It's 122 billion. 122 billion dollars. My goodness, there's a lot of degenerates out there, and the people that host these gambling platforms are making a killing off of suckers. I don't like gambling. I tried it one time in 2020 during the pandemic for college sports, and it was miserable. I'm like, why would people do this? I have no joy from this. I'm losing money, and I don't really feel good spending my hard-earned money like that. The only gambling I'm willing to do is investments, and that's more of a safer route than gambling on sports, where there's not really rhyme or reason to it. You can maybe argue, but in the grand scheme, in the long run, if you keep betting like daily, you're going to lose more than you win. And yet some people do these ridiculous parlays that like 9 to 10% of the time you'll win in the long run. Like, you know how horrible those are? People get anxious about 50% probability for like flipping a coin or something. Yet they'll do these insane parlays, or ESPN will give these money lines and shoot ads into your face until you get nauseous and numb, and it's just obscene at some point. So I just laugh with my dad and be like, yep, crazy. This is how things are. In just 5 years, the pandemic just spurred online gambling to new extreme highs, and now gambling addictions are just at an all-time high. And You can argue maybe gambling should have been censored and kept how it was before unleashing it. But when it comes to like music or things that you can access on the internet, hell no. Are you kidding me? Like, now I gotta re identify myself and share details of me just to access a site that I didn't need it before? If I was living in the UK. Who knows? Maybe the US is gonna follow suit. I have no idea. I'm no fortune teller. Just sharing my ideas on this. And it's crazy that some people will like approve of this and be like, we're protecting the kids, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, how about just be a good parent and supervise your kids? Crazy concept instead of leaving up to your parenting duties to corporations. Because, yeah, corporations are great, right? Am I right, guys? Everyone loves a good corporation. I love the corpos. I play Cyberpunk right now, and themes in there about corporations sucking. And yeah, if in the year 2077, if I make it that far, if it's ever something like that, oof. Some parts of it would be nice, but man, super dystopian. Really unsettling stuff with censorship. A lot of people just want to take the fun out of things that 15 years ago used to fly, and they weren't even like super racist, obscene, or hateful content. It'd be like, oh, there was a little lewdness there, and now we got to really hone that back. And some things we just can't go for because they're not in the current zeitgeist or something. And it just gets really political because on one side you have liberals doing stuff like this, and then conservatives doing their own crap, and just politics in America are so nauseating now at a global perspective. It's interesting to watch from the sidelines. Both sides can kind of screw themselves. I try to take bits and pieces from each one, but there's no way I'll identify as either other. And yeah, as I get older, it's interesting to get these different perspectives. But when it just comes to a rights thing and freedom of speech and free like access, like whenever bringing up things of censorship never really goes well, and I think it just hurts an individual more instead of helping them. Because if you start limiting things that someone else deems wrong instead of you consuming it and then making your own opinion, that's how critical thought dies. And without critical thought, we get a bunch of slow, idiotic people. And I ain't even claiming to be no Einstein, but damn, some of the things I saw as a kid, I turned out okay. And you could argue they could have, like, I remember playing Halo 3 when I was 10, M-rated game, and I turned out fine. Some people say, mature video games will melt your brain and turn guys violent, but there's not really a lot of support for that. I remember thinking, I did a paper actually on video games if they were violent or not in high school, and it was found, at least with the couple of articles I found while researching it, that there was no like strong correlation to it. It's probably just anti-game propaganda, and a lot of people don't even have a lot of integrity with how they share these things. Sometimes they have an agenda to push that may not be true, but because they don't agree with it, they'll contort and spin something as much as they can, spinning until they get the right angle that they want to display something that maybe objectively is good or neutral, but they'll make it negative. One thing I've seen lately that's really popular is the Gen Z stare. I feel like people in general have always had that, but now it's like a trend, and I feel like a lot of people are just, they go from one trend to the next, and it's like, is your life just full of trends? Is this who you are as a person? Do you ever sit down and put the phone down and have individual thought of what you're thinking? Any original ideas? I try to have original ideas when I sit down, and maybe I'll see something on the news, but I won't read like 10 articles and be like, those are the talking points I'm going to, speak upon when making a video. I feel like that's not doing you a favor as the viewer. I want a more candid, realistic, sit down and chat vibe from the dome. It's not scripted at all. I feel like there's already too much curated stuff out there, and a lot of people already do that, and I'm kind of tired of it. So at least with my content, I want more authenticity to it, because being fake is quite repulsive, and when I sniff it off someone, I just get so disengaged and turned off from it. It kind of makes me sick to my stomach. Like, I want to walk so far from this person. I don't even want to communicate with them anymore. They're very disingenuous, and I just don't have time for people like that. Luckily for the people in my life, they aren't like that. I got really lucky with the friends I made. It can make your life pretty hard, honestly, if you don't have a good support system. Lucked out with good parents as well, and I have a lot to be grateful for. I think practicing gratitude is an important thing as well, because there's the saying that, someone's always doing better than you and someone is always doing worse than you. So I think you can always just look at your situation, find things to be grateful for, but you can strive to do better in your own life, whether you're improving. I think self-improvement's a great tool. Some people may take it too far, but I think holistically, from what it is, I think it's more good than bad, and everyone should do it, man or woman. Because, if you don't have a lot of direction in life, I think self-improvement is a great foundation for me. It's been like working out and stuff while I try to just figure out what's the next step in my life, whether it's moving out, honing in on my job a little bit more, maybe doing more YouTube videos, following like my passion projects, really gearing on fitness. Um, I've I've dropped weed for over a year, and now another thing I want to drop is dating apps. I had a streak for about 2 weeks, and it was going good. I re-downloaded them. I was like, I didn't miss anything, and I was kind of hard on myself, and you get that guilt, which is like my own fault. But started about 2 or 3 days ago, and gonna see how long I could do it, because just this validation I feel on dating apps, and one of my, like, the algorithm really liked a video where it was relating to dating for this channel, where probably a great amount, probably like a fourth, maybe a third of you subscribed on that video alone. And if you're watching this, thank you, firstly. But dating in itself is its really own interesting thing, and I think addictions and stuff and combating it comes from within. And when you start censoring stuff that may be very harmful, it can be a double-edged sword, because sometimes you may end up censoring really important themes that may be very mature but are very adult and human that people should learn, instead of just censoring it and throwing it into the backlog and be like, well, this goes against this teaching, or this is kind of harmful to that religion. And you want people to make that decision for themselves, because especially when it comes to history, if we don't learn from our past, we're doomed to repeat our mistakes. And that is a scary thought. You can argue history is repeating itself as it unfolds in the world stage. But I think that's basically all I had to share on that. To reiterate, censorship sucks, and really hope we can have some user consumer rights to have our own agency to make our choices, and not have some out of touch person making these choices for everyone else that have, individual thought and want to learn and figure these things out for themselves, instead of someone telling them what they can and what they cannot do. So, with that, have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Peace.